Where do you draft quarterbacks in 2021? Where do you draft quarterbacks any year? I'm going to break down where you should draft a quarterback, when you should draft a quarterback, why you should avoid the mainstream avoid early quarterback approach that keeps getting shoveled down everybody's throat in fantasy football content creation. Early quarterback is bad. You'll lose your league if you draft a QB in round 4, Smitty. The quarterback pool is so deep, Smitty. Why would you even consider going a quarterback before round 7? We're going to tear all of that down. Not that drafting a quarterback late is bad. I love Jalen Hurts at round 10, Rodgers in 7, Burrow in 9, Russell Wilson in 7 or 8, Kyler, Herbert in 6. You know how much I love Herbert. He is the GOAT. He'll punch you in the throat. I love all those guys. There is a time and a place to draft them too. The difference between me and where I tell you to draft them and the mainstream content creators out there that'll tell you, hey, you can't take a quarterback early. Here's why the QB pool is deep. Well, that's not a very deep stance, Bill or Steve or Philip or whoever's creating that content that you're consuming right there. That is not deep. You need to peel back the layers of each individual draft, the flow, to know exactly what you're talking about when you say no quarterback early. No quarterback early? Who's on the board when you're on the clock when you're considering a quarterback? Does anybody ask you that question when they give you blanket advice about taking a quarterback early? The answer is no. Josh Allen in round 4, you have just been Smitty approved. We're breaking it all down. The Fantasy Football Show begins now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show. Smitty. Take a lap. Early quarterback drafting, the most controversial topic for me every single offseason, and I go through the steps and motions every offseason to explain it because people just don't like the topic at all. My people do, but in general, people push back, give blanket bad advice. Don't draft a quarterback early, and they don't even know the context of your situation. They don't know who's on the board. They don't know what the quarterback landscape looks like. They give you a blanket, don't draft a quarterback early. But I'm here to tell you the middle round quarterback strategy is here, and it's not going anywhere. Okay, so right here are rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the point. And we're going to start plotting quarterbacks, and we're going to start plotting situations onto this map right here. And when someone says don't take a quarterback early, we're talking mid-round quarterback range. I'm not advocating anybody take Mahomes here or take Mahomes here. And I'm not even the biggest fan of Mahomes right here or anything in 2021 because of the Josh Allen factor. And so I might be telling you I might not draft Mahomes even one time in 2021 because of where Josh Allen is falling. Josh Allen is on average falling 1 round or more past Mahomes. And Allen's my number 1 quarterback in 2021. I love Mahomes. I think he can throw for 45 TDs with the extra game that we've added, but I think Allen can too, and I think Allen's more capable of doing it because his offense is so pass heavy. I love Allen. He's only going to get better. I love the Diggs and Allen stack. A QB wide receiver stack in Diggs and Allen that could be more consistent than anything we've seen in a while, because they pass so much that even in the fourth quarter when they're up by 2 touchdowns, they might throw. So this is the stack to own. My favorite approach overall in 2021 might just be getting Allen in round 4, 5 and Diggs at 11 or 10 or 13 if you can. My favorite approach pretty much across the board, Allen and Diggs being on the same team without touching your 2nd and 3rd rounder. In some cases, your 4th rounder. Sometimes you can get Allen in 5. But I want to explain that because Mahomes going early QB to me doesn't constitute Mahomes right here. Going early QB to me is essentially what we've kind of defined on the channel and show as being middle round QB drafting. So no longer are we worried about early QB drafting. I'm trying to convey in a way that that eases people that are gun shy about taking a quarterback early. I want them to have terminology that isn't the same old terminology like, I'm coining you an early QB drafter if you take Josh Allen. That has a negative connotation. I don't want you walking away from this thinking, oh, I'm going to be a early QB drafter now. Everyone's going to make fun of me. You're not an early QB drafter. I'm not asking you to take Mahomes in round 2. You're looking at the option of taking a Josh Allen at this pick right here, and Josh Allen is a middle round QB draft selection anywhere, in 5 and this round 4 range. Why do I like Allen in round 4, the end of round 4, and definitely the top of round 5? For 2 reasons. Most of the players being drafted in this area right here are not going to be difference makers that the players maybe in this range all over here are going to be. You've got Ceedee Lamb potentially going right here. So let's write like Lamb in. Lamb was going in round 4. Lamb was a reason why I did avoid going Allen in some cases and then took advantage of a A-Rod right here. So A-Rod was going here. Kyler's going like in round 5 somewhere. Herbert's going in round 6. These are all great quarterbacks to draft. There's nothing wrong with this pick. Nothing wrong with this pick. Nothing wrong with A-Rod. Nothing wrong with Wilson. Nothing wrong with Hurts around this range right here. Hurts is going in like the 7 to 10. These are all fantastic fire quarterbacks given their value. But it doesn't take away the fact that this guy could throw for well over 40, maybe 45 TDs, run about 5 in, get you potentially 50 plus touchdowns in 2021. If you disagree with that, let's just put it at 45 total touchdowns just to make some people feel comfortable that don't like predicting big things. They just want the standard deviation from the norm, and they don't like big, bold content. Let's put it at 45. If you don't think Allen can score 45 TDs total or 50, then this isn't the pick for you. Then our divide starts way before arguing Allen in round 4. It starts with Allen himself. Now, if Mahomes were to fall here and you think Mahomes will do that, then Mahomes is a good argument for people that have a late 3rd rounder because he can also, I think, stand out pretty big right there. But the bottom line is, before people tell you, hey, you shouldn't take a QB early, you have to know what players are available when you're on the clock. Because if I don't know if Lamb is available in your grandma league at 4.4, because grandma doesn't quite know that Lamb's ready to break out. Grandma doesn't watch Hard Knocks. Grandma doesn't know this and know that. Grandma's getting a magazine that's 1 month old that hasn't caught up to the Ceedee Lamb hype. You might get Lamb at 4.4. You probably won't in any normal league now. You could have months ago. One reason why drafting early is actually a good thing, despite everybody repeating, Mike Thomas went down, drafting early is bad. Akers went down. This is why you don't draft early. See?
This is why you don't draft early. Akers went down.
Carson Wentz went down. Carson Wentz predictable. Akers predictable. I don't care if the injury itself wasn't predictable. Akers was my biggest running back avoid of 2021. Mike Thomas, no one knew what was going on with him. Nobody knew if he had the surgery or didn't all offseason long. And everybody assumed he was going to be fine. Everything's just going to work out. Mike Thomas is Mike Thomas. He'll be fine. These were all predictable so far to a degree. And I'm not saying that a player I love that has no injury risk can't go down on a no-touch play in practice. He could drop with an ACL tear. It could be my favorite player that has no injury risk at all. I'm not saying that can't happen, but that can happen at any point. October, September, August. When you draft has no impact on whether a player is going to go down on your watch. What you have control of is taking advantage of the Ceedee Lambs while they're getting drafted in round 4, round 5, taking advantage of Javonte Williams before he's the next ADP riser and he climbs from round 5 into round 3. Mark my words, it's going to happen. Taking advantage of Josh Allen right now before you start hearing more and more and more content on how this guy looks phenomenal and he's going to actually take a step forward. People act like Josh Allen can't get better. He's going to get better. Him and Diggs will get better together. The offense will get better. Josh Allen's going to mature into an even better quarterback every single year he plays football. And his 4.10 to 5.04, sometimes a laughable pick to some people, is going to look more and more like a good idea the more we get closer to week 1. Drafting early is actually good. Drafting early, if you avoid some of the pitfalls in players like Chubb. Why do you not like Chubb, Smitty? Do 2 worrisome knees ring a bell? DAndre Swift, complete offensive collapse. Will they move the football? Will they get in the red zone at all? Will they win even 2 games in Detroit? They've dismantled the entire team. Taking advantage of people really high on these guys and allowing players like Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Javonte Williams, Trey Sermon before he gets a bunch of hype behind him. Drafting these guys before they become the players we know they can become is an advantage. I'm not saying draft in January in a redraft league. I'm merely telling you when people say drafting early is bad or, see, this is why you don't draft early, Smitty. Told you. The only thing you told me is that you must have drafted Cam Akers or Mike Thomas, and I get it. It sucks when a guy goes down, but the advantages of drafting early outweigh the disadvantages of waiting and letting all the player values climb and letting your grandma, your Uncle Bud catch up to the norm, or what should be the norm. Back to the board and these quarterbacks. So we've got Herbie, fantastic value. Kyler, I love this value. This becomes a target of mine, and I love it. I love Herbie too. These become targets when players fall that shouldn't fall to this pick right here. And then it becomes a calculated move like, okay, I can try and get Allen here. I don't think he's going to fall, but if not, backup plan is Kyler. I love Herbert. So if, like in the past, Lamb used to fall here, that would be the pick. Now it's like, okay, what if Monty were to fall? What if a player that I really like falls right here? Then you take them if they're a difference maker. But half the time at 4.10, let's say, we'll call this 4.10. Half the time at 4.10, you're looking at a Gaskin, who I don't hate, but that's not a player that's going to make you lose your league by missing out on them. You can get a Josh Allen instead and replace Gaskin with a player later on. Let's just call this player, in round 7, Michael Carter. So you can get a Michael Carter right here. You can get a Mike Davis in this range. Mike Davis. So instead of going Gaskin, I'll take Mike Davis. I'll take a platoon of guys that I love and get the number 1 potential overall scorer in fantasy football at this range. Am I asking you to give up a Ceedee Lamb for Josh Allen? No. That's when you forego the early QB, the middle round QB option when you have players that are difference makers. Lamb could be a top 5 player at his position. When there's still players that can be top 5 at the position on the board, you don't forego that for the QB. That's kind of my unstated rule. That's kind of my barometer as to whether I'm going to pull the trigger on an early drafted quarterback, a middle range quarterback like Josh Allen in round 4 or not. It comes down to who's on the board. If someone tells you, hey, Frankie, don't take a quarterback early no matter what, that person's giving you blanket advice without any context around who's on the clock, what the dynamic is in your league. Do quarterbacks go early? I bet they don't even ask if it's 6 points per TD pass. Josh Allen is a steal once you get to a place where you have these guys available. Let's break it down. Let's call Josh Allen 4.08. We'll write in names up above him the guys we take over Josh Allen, and we'll write below the players that we pass on in order to get Josh Allen, in order to take that gamble of having the number 1 overall quarterback. And yeah, we're going to replace our guy like Allen Robinson. I know a lot of you like Allen Robinson. There's nothing wrong with Allen Robinson. He's a good player, but I'm not taking him when I can get a Jerry Jeudy later, or maybe a DJ Moore, or someone in that range, Brandon Ayuk, someone like that over an A-Rob. Would I take A-Rob over Brandon Ayuk? Of course I would. But what I'm saying is, instead of taking A-Rob over Josh Allen, I'm taking Josh Allen and Jerry Jeudy, Josh Allen and Brandon Ayuk, Josh Allen and maybe a Kenny Golladay, and I'm replacing Allen Robinson much more than I'm going to be able to replace Josh Allen in his 45-50 TD passes. If you disagree on that number. If you don't think Josh Allen's going to have that kind of year, then again, we're having a completely different argument, and that's where our divide is. That's where we part ways. But if you believe, like me, that Josh Allen can drop a 45 TD passing season in 2021, maybe 4 to 6 more rushing, or you put him at a total cap of 48 to 50 total TDs, then he is worth drafting over Allen Robinson. He is worth drafting over Swift. You can get a Mike Davis later on instead of Swift. You can get a Javonte Williams instead of Swift. You can replace Swift. You can replace A-Rob. You can replace Woods. As much as I like him, you can replace him easier. You can't replace Josh Allen, Cooper Kupp, Gaskin, Jacobs. I'm taking a guy like Mike Davis later. Miles Sanders. I'm not taking Sanders over Josh Allen. I can replace these guys way more. Guys I might consider, I mean, if Kittle is available or one of the big baller top 3 tight ends, of course I would consider that player and say, hey, maybe I can get Kyler later, or maybe Josh Allen falls. This is where you might take the gamble, try and let Allen fall. Your backup plan is Kyler Murray or Herbert or whatever. I love those quarterbacks enough to make this strategy work. Of course, this is not likely whatsoever anymore, but you never know. It's worth repeating because some of you still play with your grandma. So we're going to put Lamb in there. Montgomery is another player that if he was available, I would consider going Monty and try and use the Kyler Murray approach. I suppose ETN is a thought. You could go in that direction in the 4th round, but I still feel like that one's kind of iffy. I still like Josh Allen and a Mike Davis later. I wouldn't be opposed to a McLaurin and then a Kyler Murray, but I don't think that one's a must. I mean, I still think you could debate Josh Allen and then later wide receiver. And of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, A.J. Brown, all those guys, obviously, all up here. I'm trying to think of guys that are close to that 4th round range. And honestly, I feel like we pulled most of the controversial ones up above. These are the guys that I would consider obviously strongly grabbing instead of Allen in my change of direction plan of attack, which would then land me with Kyler or Herbert in the later rounds. That's where I go later QB. It's not that I don't love later QB. It's not that I won't have a ton of teams that have a later quarterback approach. I will, because I'll find some of these talents waiting for me in my 4th round pick. And what matters so much is where your 4th round pick is, because if you have a pick in the top of the 4th round instead of the bottom of the 4th round, you're highly likely. So if here's the 4th round, and if you have a pick here versus a pick here, this is going to be highly likely a Josh Allen selection by me. This right here still has the potential for a Lamb maybe at the top of 4, but probably not, or a Montgomery, somebody like that I mentioned earlier, falling to that draft slot. This is a lot more likely to happen. Or even a Keenan Allen. I've seen Keenan Allen fall to this range right here, and so that would be more likely of the scenario of me going with that other non-Josh Allen pick. This right here, far more likely. If I had to pull a number out of thin air, I would say 80 to 85% chance I'm going Josh Allen at this 410 to 412 range, because most likely, based on all the mock drafting I've done, those players that are potential grabs over Allen are all gone by this 4.10 to 4.12. So 85% chance probably that I'm taking Josh Allen at this pick. Where you're drafting in this 4th round has very much to do with whether you're likely to be going with that Allen approach. When talking about taking Josh Allen in round 4 and somebody says, hey, you're taking him way too early because you can get Dak so much later, or you can get so-and-so so much later, you're not comparing apples to apples. If you take Josh Allen in round 4 and Jerry Jeudy in round 7, you got to ask yourself that Jeudy compared to Dak and A-Rob compared to Josh Allen, apples for apples, what two are better? If you like A-Rob and Dak more, then you probably don't like Josh Allen as much as I do. And that's fine. Or let's take it one step further and say, okay, Josh Allen in round 4, Smitty, you can get a quarterback later. Okay, so where you get your quarterback, Dak, I'll take Carter as a running back. You take Gaskin in round 4, buddy, and we'll see whose two are better. I'll take Josh Allen and Carter any day of the week over Gaskin and Dak Prescott, but that's me. The point is, you have to compare apples to apples, or none of this makes sense at all. You can't just talk about a quarterback pool being deeper and that means you got to go quarterback. Why are you going quarterback later? Are you getting the value in that round 4 pick that you're not going to potentially get later, like in a Carter? If that's the case, like in my Lamb scenarios, I take Lamb. But at 4.10, where you can get Josh Allen on the regular, there are only Gaskin type players left. There are no more Ceedee Lamb players or players that I feel could be top 5 at their position. Therefore, I'm more inclined to go with a Carter. Or an even better scenario, Mike Davis and Josh Allen versus Gaskin and Dak Prescott. Or Gaskin and A-Rod. I'd much rather have Mike Davis and Josh Allen. Apples to apples. Don't let people start talking this mess about how just because the QB pool is deep that they know what they're talking about. I love A-Rod. I love Herbert. I love Kyler. Please take away from this that I believe those guys can ball out. A-Rod in round 7 is phenomenal value. It comes down to context. I feel like everybody listens to this content, but they don't hear it. Sometimes uncomfortable moves need to be made. And if Allen going 4.10 makes your league uncomfortable, by all means unleash that uncomfortable feeling upon your league mates like the Thunder Josh Allen's going to drop in 2021. Happy quarterback drafting. Josh Allen in round 4, you have just been Smitty approved. Order my text advice at heysmitty.com. I carry around a phone with me all day, a second phone that I use just to talk to you guys on my heysmitty.com. Order it today right there. Join me every Tuesday and Thursday on the Fantasy Football Show live here on the channel, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern every single Tuesday and Thursday. Don't miss it. We do Fantasy Football Court every single Tuesday and Thursday, so join up. And if you want that free phone call from me, all you got to do is go to Smitty1.com. Click on the banner you see right here that will pop up when you go to Smitty1.com. Go to Smitty1.com, click on this banner. That is Smitty1.com. The banner will pop up. You click on it, you make a $10 minimum deposit, and guess what? You win a free phone call from me. A $10 minimum deposit gets you $25 in cash bonus from Underdog. It's a win, win, win. Go do it. Go play Underdog Fantasy in 2021. And be certain to use the link on Smitty1.com, which the banner is attached to, and make sure promo code Smitty is entered so you get that phone call and the $25 cash bonus. Now go get it. And I'm dropping a bold prediction on Sleeper the letter U.com, like a university. I'm dropping a bold prediction tonight, and it's going to be a doozy. You will not want to miss it later.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show. I'm Smitty.